This was supposed to be a simple build. A starter build. A slow introduction into the world. And then it turned into something else entirely. A Solarpunk city. You may begin to wonder how such a structure was even created in survival, with no automatic farms, no cheats, and no flying. This brings us to the most tedious part of building in survival. I personally think that the most annoying part of any survival Minecraft build is collecting the materials. It takes so much time ahead of building. Part of playing on this new season of the Flow SMP is the new blocks that we have at our disposal. Stuff like limestone, bunch of new ores, as well as variations to blocks with the mod chipped, made almost any block a viable block to be part of this build. So once I had enough materials to make it to the mine, I went crazy. I collected so many materials, so much coal, iron ore, and copper so that I wouldn't have to do so in the end. Unfortunately, that is not really how things work, as I kept coming up with new ideas throughout the build and needed more blocks to meet those new ideas. But alas, I was done with collecting materials. As this is the start of a brand new city on the brand new season of the Flow SMP, one of the founding members, Cinder, and I spent the remainder of the first week laying down pathways that we had pre-planned. This was quite the undertaking, as it was quite monotonous, but we dug up where the paths would go and laid down different types of stone to complete these pathways, lighting the areas up as we went. It rained through a large portion of this, and we were living out of chests on the ground while this all occurred. One of the most annoying parts about this video was actually using the replay mod. It requires a lot of keying where frames go, but I honestly think it was really helpful for displaying all the pathways in time-lapse as opposed to seeing it in first person, because in first person, I was jumping around trying to place these pathways to make it look as random as possible. Another really cool part about this was the gutters. I had found a lot of inspiration clips that had gutters as stairs and slabs in urban environments, and I want to use this to kind of emulate the super clean, nice looking gutters that you see in some videos over like COVID, or even sometimes in like Japan countryside. So this was super fun to do, as it was a retroactive element, so I did it after I'd completed all the pathways. And then I also added some ponds alongside this using, obviously, stairs and slabs again. And I thought it made them look really nice. I used this palette of stone tiles, stone bricks, polished and raw andesite to give it this rough yet polished look, so it didn't look too odd, as these would go all the way from the city center into the countryside. As I was adding these, I'm kind of watching this back and realizing I really want to change these out for gravel so I can add some seagrass or coral maybe in them. I think it looks rather plain right now, and I think they could use a little extra touch. Throughout the map, we've also laid out these X's, which are going to mark where the windmills go later on through the build of the city, as this will be a series. I currently only have these marked out in physical, but we have a lot more marked out on our map. And we have 2 built that are functioning for create machines. I've also designed some airborne windmills, or like wind turbines, kind of inspired by Big Hero 6, but that is in my test world, as they're very hard to build in creative, and I think they were better off as a pre-planned schematic, so we can build them off of the schematic rather than trying to go at it raw in survival. I truly did not have a single plan going into this build, which may be a little bit hard to believe. The origins of this aspect of the build are more closely related to my previous build in the previous season of the Flow SMP, but I had found a few inspirations on Pinterest that I had compiled into a sort of design packet to influence the remainder of this build. I'm quite used to using wood planks and fences to build, as it's a really easy way to add texture. In regards to texture, this is the main design tool I utilize in survival Minecraft builds. In order for a build to be useful and economical, it's hard to use multiple layers of walls in survival. Multiple layers are chunky, they use up materials, and they waste valuable space. And a way to compensate for that is alternating between around 2 to 3 blocks of a similar color to create value and interest. So I tend to use strip wood and planks frequently in these combinations as they have good harmony. At this point, I had actually found one solid inspiration I was going for. It was this gorgeous build that was kind of mildly Japanese by Taco Squad. I really liked the copper elements on the lower parts of the build, as well as the blocking of multiple stories. So I was testing out a lot of different things with this build. I knew I wanted to incorporate aspects of copper and texture things with fence gates at the base level. I also wanted to add in antennas and kind of satellite poles and lampposts to really give a modern element to the whole city. Actually, later on in the build, we had discovered these things. I believe they're a part of the Create mod called electrical transmitters, and these are... I know they serve a function. I'm gonna be honest, we did not use them for a function, but you can connect copper wires to them, and that gives a really nice wire transmitter electrical pole vibe that we really aspired for. I know some other people in the city have been using them for function, but I have no comprehension of the Create mod whatsoever, so I personally have not been using it for function. I also discovered these wooden shutters kind of on accident, which have a really unique form as opposed to simple trapdoors, and I utilize them a lot on the sides of doors to differentiate them a little bit in the facade and give a little bit more depth to the building overall. I also knew that I wanted this to be a split story build. As much as the idea of flattening out the ground completely comes to mind a lot of times when people tend to build in survival, I think the aspect of building it into the hill was a lot more compelling to me at the moment. So I gradually built it into the wall and was trying to build up to a second story that would actually match the ground level of the side part where we had kept all of our very messy communal storage. I'd also found this inspiration for this like trapdoor window shelving unit that was on a lot of these like Japanese or like city-esque builds to add more depth than just having a window. I did see a lot of people using trapdoors as window pane elements, but a lot of that was in creative with an empty building and simply just building a facade. I also really want to add these, I believe they're called norens, which are these fabrics that cover doors or really any openings in Japan. I didn't really purposely do this. It kind of just came to me and I stuck with it throughout the whole build, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using it throughout the whole rest of the city as well. I wanted to go ahead and decorate the lobby as I went, as I kind of thought it was too much to build the facade in its entirely and then go back and then do the interior, especially because I kind of needed a space to work and to set up storage as I went on. So I did this for the carpentry table, and then later on, I don't think I ever filmed it, but I have the tinkering table, which I could use for doing custom lamps from chipped. And I had set that up in that little alcove on the stairs. I took a lot of inspiration and a lot of hauls from urban Minecraft builds that I saw. I've actually wound up on, I think, Japanese Minecraft Twitter. And I keep seeing these builds that have a lot of extruding elements that give a lot of depth to the buildings. So stuff like windowsills, antenna, gutters on the side. And I wanted to incorporate those elements in this build. I also wanted to doll up the inside as I was building this in survival, and again, had to use the building while I was building it. So I added in some furniture so I wouldn't have to go back after I'd finished the exterior to add in that furniture, and it really helped it make it look a lot more alive. I also wanted to complete that loft area as a little bit of a mezzanine. It didn't really have a real purpose, but it helps transition the upper level to the lower level a lot more nicely than just having a staircase at the same place that it conjuncts with the upper hillside. I originally was planning on adding in more storage in this area, but I thought it was a lot better off as more of a decorative space with storage being somewhere else. As I built upwards, I slowly had an actual solid plan for me in my head for the program of this community center. I remember in one of the previous seasons, we had a center that had communal resources, so I wanted to include that, as well as a dormitory, a cafe, and some town history as well. And that town history would be displayed in... I also had planned originally for the section to contain all the community resources, which is what you're seeing here with this mess of different types of chests on top of everything. One of the very nice things about building on an SMP, especially one like the Flow SMP, is a lot of people are very willing to donate resources. One of the mods we have on the server, I want to say it's like crayfish's mailboxes or something like that, allowed us to be able to send stuff across far distances, obviously, through the mail on the server. And that really helped to round out the build. I didn't have to go searching for materials as badly sometimes, and I could honestly just ask in the chat, hey, does anybody have this material? And people get it sent to us, which was rather nice. I went to bed one night after playing, and I dreamt up this lovely window display of armor stands with free-for-use sets on them. Originally, I intended to make them rotate like an animated Christmas display, but I opted for something static as that would likely have been too bulky. I also went ahead and started paving the remainder of the area. Again, I'm planning for this to be a Solarpunk city, so this urban environment is going to be mainly paved with a few spots for some foliage. So I went ahead and paved the upper area of this, and this has now actually been filled in pretty much completely with paving, and went and made a staircase going down around the side of the building, and now that has turned into an alleyway and will be flanked by another really tall building. I don't entirely have the program of that building figured out just yet. I wanted to do something with a metal workshop because as I was building this, I realized I had no space to keep a bunch of furnaces and blast furnaces, and we only have a create workshop so far and not a native Minecraft workshop. And then I think I'll also put a convenience store on that flanking building, which will likely be the next video or the video after we do the monorail station for the city. I was mentioning how I saw a lot of creative builds with trapdoors being used as the window panes or like separation for the windows, and I really loved the way that looked. And as annoying as it was, as I had tried earlier in this build to make it work, I was so adamant on making it work. So I tried this section where I used 2 layers, and with those 2 layers I managed to make an extrusion from the building with stone to give it a nice contrast against the spruce. And after messing around for a very long time, I finally got something that worked, and something that in theory you could place items on, although if I'm going to be honest, there wasn't really a lot of space for that. But I did place a lectern over here and really went to complete the rest of the walls of this build. At this point, the community center had become such a disaster with the amount of chests, and I was getting so annoyed with the lack of area around everything. I was really ready to reorganize the studio, but I honestly didn't have a way. So eventually I kind of cooked up this plan to do an auto sorter for the community center. And this audio sorter seemed like such a great idea, but as I built that lower part, I had no space at all to put this thing. Below this entire building was actually our communal mines, so if you were to go and look right now at this moment, it is a cavern in there because there's so much diorite and deep slate underneath that we really needed. I saw this one build by Junobi that had this vent, and the circular vent really was almost kind of cyberpunky, but very solarpunky at the same time if used right, and I really wanted to take the opportunity to use that form. I was struggling making this circle. I don't think I've ever put so much brain power into making something in Minecraft. I've never really made a circle in Minecraft. It's too hard. It's a block game. Like, why would I have tried to make a circle? And I tried for this one time, and I was there for hours. It was not an hour. I was there for like a good 40 minutes before I finally got the shape down. And obviously in that process, I had to fall like a million times. We have a extended third-person view on the server, so I can kind of go into this third-person view and look around to get a better view of what I'm building. That's why there are times where I'm just sitting there with my head swiveling around, trying to look at what I was doing. I also added this like almost AC ducting looking thing, but in an organic way. There were these barred oak trapdoors that I thought looked really good as like an exterior element. I really wanted the facade of this building to have a lot of extrusions and a lot of depth to not make it a very standard, boring Minecraft build. I then went ahead and kind of finished off this area for the dormitory, and I really loved this like rounded roof. I actually used a lot of cyberpunk inspiration for this, but adapted it to like a Solarpunk color palette and a Solarpunk usage. And I forgot to film most of the storm. I am so sad about it. I was properly losing my mind over the format of this storm, as I didn't really like the way it looked. So I actually made it out of rubber trees and kelp before I just redid it out of mud brick and granite. Eventually it turned out so much nicer and I could move on upstairs. So the cafe is kind of a random seeming element, but I loved this build from Junopi. I was obsessed with almost every part. They have a series of 4 builds that are all cyberpunk city blocks, and I just love the color palette of the contrasting mud brick and granite with this bright green. I really wanted to use concrete for this and green terracotta, Unfortunately, I could not find green terracotta in this world, and I could not find regular terracotta to dye either. That wasn't cyan terracotta. This is me doing that auto sorter I was talking about. I finally figured this out in my test world, and I could use these smart funnels from the create mod and add attribute filters or list filters to sort items into a chest, and this would make it really easy for people donating to the community center. You can plop your items in a chest and they automatically sort out for you. It's not a fuss to donate materials. You can kind of just plop them in, and in theory, they should be good to go. There's a little bit of an issue with this, as the attribute filters are based off of Minecraft item tags, so they don't always go about in the nicest way possible, but I think I've got them pretty down good, and because I'm currently acting as the innkeeper, I manually resort them myself sometimes if some things get a little messed up. I'm really thankful to Slash for helping me with this, as I did not want to figure out the create mod at all. I don't know, I'm like personally against it for some reason, even though it's personally really fun now that I've explored a bit. So I wanted to go ahead and finish the flooring for the upper section. In my head, building this was like the last mile stretch. I knew this was going to be the last story of the build, so I was like in crunch time to get this done, especially because I'm a college student and this was around all of my exams. And yeah, of course I had to keep falling throughout this whole thing. I genuinely went through so much food because every single time that I didn't want to move around somewhere or that I was losing too many hearts, I literally would just fall off the building to avoid having to eat food. And other times I would keep falling off the building on accident and go through so much food trying to not die because of it, to keep my levels for enchanting stuff. I wanted to add this like almost a parapet, but like not really, to the upper story to further differentiate that from the cafe. And this whole principle came about with this idea of Solarpunk and really embracing what Solarpunk means rather than just the aesthetic. I feel like oftentimes people convolute Solarpunk with super modern glass buildings, and in Minecraft it's like iron, glass panes, and then a bunch of like moss and leaves and plants. But in my head, what Solarpunk is and what like the actual movement truly means is building a community and a society that helps each other, and that kind of is a anti-authoritative commune. I hate saying the word commune because of its connotations, but I mean, this is Minecraft, guys. So building these things in together with the concept of free stuff, your basic needs are covered. We still obviously make profit because we have to as a city on the server, but helping people out and not really gatekeeping supplies if we don't need to gatekeep them. So part of this was a pay what you can cafe, which I have aptly named Hikari Cafe. And this was based on the concept that your food needs should be covered under a perfect society. So I went ahead and furnished this as a kind of hangout area in the community center and added some chairs. I do want to say it looks nothing like this right now. After this whole build was done, I kind of just took some time to play the game instead of being like a sweaty Minecraft builder. And I went ahead and added in more aspects of Farmer's Delight into this. So I added in like a brick oven stove, I think it was. You can also see a pot from what I presume is herbal brews. I don't really remember the mod, but I added in a ton of stuff to make this like a super functional kitchen. I also added in barrels for item storage and then like a payment barrel so people can drop payment in there when they need. We also had this immersive painting mod, which you could do custom paintings in, and I low-key went crazy with this one day. I made a bunch of custom paintings off of images I found on Pinterest, and I really think they add like that finishing touch to the build. What I personally think is the absolute crown of this build is this green halo that surrounds the entirety of this build, inspired by clays. Clays is a really popular Minecraft builder, and I normally wouldn't have looked at this build solely because that was not the shape that I was trying to build in. But I kept looking at this element in the Solarpunk city packet, like inspiration packet, and I knew, like, this is the building that this has to go on. It's already green, it's already like super lush and organic. So I mapped this out in creative first, but I did these mud brick block and then mud brick stair sconces, kind of. And I added jungle trapdoors alongside the upper and bottom bounds of them. I also went ahead and added levers to kind of look like it had more support. I kind of had some issues with them. I had to redo them several times. And of course, it would not be a proper Minecraft build if I didn't struggle to get up everywhere. Guys, it's the struggle of building in survival. Eventually, I'd finally managed to, like, complete the outer aspects of the build that definitely were not supposed to be left undone until this moment. I finished some windows, I added some buttons, some texturing. I wanted to complete more of the exterior elements because honestly, once that roof was done, I was like, I'm not touching the exterior of this building. It is done. Another super fun part about this, which actually is not super fun at all, I kept running out of jungle wood. We did not live in an area that has any jungle wood at all. So I was going back every 5 seconds trying to get more jungle wood because I was planting trees that would grow in the chunk I was loaded in, knocking them down, replanting them, making more trapdoors, and then coming back to get more jungle wood. It was not great. I was proper struggling throughout this haul. But I think at the end of the day, I know this is corny, I know. The struggle kind of made it worth it. It was really funny to see how complicated I could make something in survival. I would not have built this normally in a survival context, but it fit the build so well. I also unfortunately don't have it on video. Once I had roofed the whole thing, because I was building the walls up on this before I'd actually added the ceiling to the cafe and then the actual roof. But once I'd roofed this whole thing, I added another little bit of a parapet with some smooth stone slabs. And then I found these plants. I want to say the mod is like verdant something, which is almost kind of fitting because our town name is Verdant Sound, but I think it's Verdant Vines or Verdant Vibes or something. They had these monstera plants and snake plants and these really pretty lilac flowers that can be placed on moss. So I put the whole perimeter with these plants all the way around, and it really was like the finishing touch for this build. I think nothing could possibly describe Solarpunk better than this build, especially with the community resources and that auto sorter that I'm honestly really proud of. I appreciate you watching, and we'll have more builds and more of the city coming up.